So hello everyone, kia ora. My name is James Nikitine. I'm the founder and executive director of the Blue Cradle Foundation. So since I was a boy, I went scuba diving in the Mediterranean, and at the age of probably 10, 12 years old, I started diving. Quickly I became very, obsessed with the ocean and learning about ocean, marine biodiversity and ecosystems. And then traveling around the world in my early 20s, I realized that the ocean was so important that I needed to do something to protect it. So I studied marine science after having studied film, because I felt that it was important for me to communicate the issues of ocean decline and ocean health. And so that's what led me to then later found an organization, the Blue Cradle Foundation, to work in ocean science communications and marine conservation communications. I think of my children, and I think of future generations beyond my children as well, thinking of how can we work to not only protect the planet for its own sake, but also for ourselves, because this is what it's about. It's about protecting humans against catastrophic collapse of ecosystems and biodiversity on which we depend. So I arrived in Aotearoa New Zealand in 2019, so I've been here for 6 years, and before that I lived in New Zealand as a backpacker in 2009. And so for me, when I arrived here, I knew that I wanted to be based in the Pacific, and being based in the Pacific with a firm, solid base of operations, so I can bring my family up. And so New Zealand was an obvious choice. I had lived here before, I had worked here before, I have friends here and networks from 15 years ago. And I just remembered a country that is open, that is safe, where people are friendly, and that's where I wanted to be. And so that's why I came back here in 2019. My name is James because my mother is British, so I always have been bilingual and bicultural. And so I spent 7 years of my life in the UK. And so for me, also from the Geneva region, from Switzerland, I lived in Geneva for a number of years, where you have 190 nationalities, lots of different cultures. It's very multicultural. You have the United Nations. So I grew up in that multicultural environment from a very young age. So for me, coming to New Zealand was very easy. I speak English. I come here. It's very open. You have lots of cultures here. You have lots of Indians, lots of Chinese, lots of Asian, Pan-Asian countries. Moving here, you have a lot of Pacific Islanders. I spent a lot of time in the Pacific Islands, and you also have the indigenous Maori, and you have that culture which is very strong. And so for me, it's a great country to have children and have a family life. Yeah, that's a very important question. I think in Europe we are very unaware, maybe, of a lot of the local, regional, and I guess local communities and cultures that we have over there. And I think we tend to forget that Europe has indigenous peoples as well in the northern Scandinavian parts, for example, in the southern Mediterranean areas. I think when you come to New Zealand, you just realize how actually not that long ago this country was basically not what it is today, and it was a different country. It was a country where Maori were established for 800 to 900 years. There were different lifestyles altogether. There were hunters, gatherers. There was no, extraction of resources like we see today. There was no, explosion engines and things like that. We didn't have the technology back then, but we brought it here. And I think Europeans, British, Scottish, Welsh, Irish, and also the French and other nations as well, the Germans, the Dutch, and the Italians and the Spaniards, a lot of these cultures and people came here. And I think the revitalization of Maori culture and Maori language is very, very good to see, because I feel that the last 100 years or so, they've been oppressed and they've been essentially colonized. And so that's not something to be proud of. But I think more importantly, at the global level, I think we need to think about our ways of living. And I think a lot of the peoples around the world that live, more simply, more consciously about their environment, are the ones that are going to survive in the future. And I think we as Europeans, as Westerners, we perhaps have not been as conscious about our environment. I'm not speaking for myself because I've lived in a village community, and so I grew up in a village where everybody was, you know, exposed to the environment. But I'm thinking more of urban centers around the world where people are maybe disconnected from nature and disconnected from the natural world and the understanding of the cycles, the natural cycles and biodiversity and the food chains. I think if you think of indigenous peoples around the world, because they lived so close to nature and so holistically with nature, they're the ones who are the best placed to understand and share their knowledge to you know, help us change. I think that's what we really need at the global level. But I think it's small steps.